Welcome everybody to Trash Talk. My name's Nearly Crazy.
I'm Angry Toast.
You looked like you were about to do the Trash Talk.
Nope, never.
Nope.
Never again.
You were like, you were ready.
I was ready. I was, but no.
And then you shunned yourself.
Yeah.
You shamed yourself.
Yeah.
Like Game of Thrones. Shame! Oh, you haven't watched that, have you?
No.
Well.
Never watched a single episode.
Perfect for RPG talk then. But, so what have you been up to?
Inscription.
Inscription?
I've been watching a lot of Inscription. It's a crazy, crazy alternate reality game.
I've heard they've been releasing an update or working on releasing an update where you can play some of the...
There's a beta update.
Beta update? Okay. Yeah, I was kind of hearing like some of the Game of the Year talk from other people and like they were talking about...
I'm surprised it didn't get mentioned for Game of the Year.
Oh, at the TGAs?
Yeah.
I think it got nominated for like, was it Best Indie Game maybe? Like, it might be one of those things that it became big so recently that like it just wasn't in the conversation maybe.
Maybe. Well, that's sad.
Yeah. It's kind of the problem with a lot of gaming stuff. Sadly. It's like either you've got to be an indie game that's been killing it the entire year, like Loop Hero. Or
yeah.
you got to be...
Yeah, Loop Hero came out with a recent update too.
Or you got to be
a
major game that everybody remembers. Unless you're Hitman, because poor Hitman came out like January or February this year and no one remembers it.
Which
Same
Hitman?
as Hitman 3.
That came out a while ago.
Yeah, it came out earlier this year.
Like much
like
earlier.
in January, February. Nope.
Yeah, no,
January,
nobody
February.
remembers.
Yep. It's kind of like it's like when people mention Resident Evil Village is kind of another one I kind of forget came out this year, and like because it kind of happened and I liked it and then it was just gone.
Yeah.
And I never thought about it again until Game of the Year time was happening. It's like, oh yeah, that came out this year, didn't it?
Well, you gotta when you're considering Game of the Year. I mean, it sucks that the most recent ones get the most recognition, but you also have to consider the sticking power of a game because there's still games that I remember from forever ago, and they have sticking power, and that's what should make a Game of the Year.
Well, like It Takes Two came out in like February or March. That's what won.
And I've never played that either.
Yeah.
I've never even seen anything about it.
It's really good. It's pretty good. I wouldn't say it's super good, but I really liked it. I liked what it came across with. But have you been anything else? Inscription watching and
That's about it.
okay, fun. I this last week I finished up Lost Judgment. So right now I'm just doing side quest stuff just to enjoy my time in that world a little bit more. And I played Life is Strange True Colors. That was an emotional time. And then I started Death's Door yesterday. And I've been playing some One Punch Man, a hero nobody knows. So that's been...
Why didn't you include me on that adventure? I fucking love One Punch Man.
Yup.
Yeah, that.
What was that?
One Punch Man.
One Punch Man?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's local multiplayer.
Well, I could still be here.
Well, it's just
Calling your shit out.
It's my podcast game is what I call them.
Oh
it's
yeah,
a game,
yeah, that's right.
Where it's a game I don't need to worry about the story because from my understanding it's just everything in season 1 and I've seen season 1 of One Punch Man like 700 times.
Who doesn't like the anti-protagonist? Like, I don't know, what would you call him? Because he's not really a protagonist, but he is.
I mean, he is a protagonist, but he is like
he's not an anti-hero. He's just like an anti-protagonist, where he just doesn't do what the protagonists do. He doesn't give a shit.
Well, no, like the way I look at protagonist is like that's the main character, that's who you follow, and that's what he is. But like,
right. Well, I mean, so we're gonna get into definitional stuff. Like, you got the antagonist, somebody who is against everything that the people want. The anti-people. Or the anti-objective. And then you got the protagonist who is pro-objective, or somebody who's pro-people. But One Punch Man, or Saitama, doesn't really give a shit. Like, he is not... He's like an anti-protagonist.
We are along in his adventure, though.
Yeah.
We are there for his adventure. And no matter how random it is, like Deadpool, no matter how random it is, he's still the protagonist.
Yeah, he's the... what do they call that?
Well, Deadpool's an anti-hero, but he's still a protagonist,
but I'd call One Punch or Saitama anti-protagonist, where he's still a protagonist, but it's just like meh, just like Deadpool's anti-hero.
Yeah.
See,
but anti-hero doesn't lean against protagonist. It's just the kind of
right. No, and I'm not saying that calling something an anti-protagonist would lean against protagonism. It's just that it's not so pro. It's not so giving a shit about what humanity. He's just kind of there.
Huh. Well, welcome to One Punch Man talk.
definitional talk.
Yeah. Gotta love it. Just make sure you're not late for your groceries like Saitama is sometimes, otherwise he gets real mad.
Yeah, and he misses out on that 50 cent.
I was proud. One of the side quests is I gave him a coupon for like 50% off. He's like, "Oh, can I bring Genos with too? Because it's like a coupon for 4." I'm like, "Nice." So we got to party it up. It was fun. Also brought to you by the Spike Chunsoft people. So I mean, Jump Force, Aeon the Somnium Files, Danganronpa, One Punch Man. It's all great
Absolutely.
in its own dumb way.
Hi, Charlie.
But with that said, time to go to our topic. What is an RPG?
It's very contentious.
Between the two of us,
having multiple discussions.
So do we want to start off with like what are elements of RPGs that really make them an RPG to us?
Are we going with strict definitions or personal definitions?
I mean, we can bring up both, and like in the end, it'll be more of the audience decision to decide which one of us is dumb as shit and the other one is less dumb as shit. But
or they probably have a different perspective as well.
Maybe.
Because it's a very contentious topic. So, to me, what makes an RPG, like, thinking, I wish I could give you more of my raw thoughts, instead of my more refined thoughts, but you are playing a role.
Okay.
But you are being dragged along with that role. It's not like create a character in Skyrim, and already getting hot topic in here. Not like creating a character in Skyrim where you're playing you. Like, I'm doing all the things. No, it's more of you are being dragged through a situation where you get to make occasional decisions. Like, let's say, that zombie one, Walking Dead.
No, see, Dead Rising?
Dead Rising.
State of Decay.
I mean...
Black Ops Zombies. All the zombie games.
But, like, it's more of a story told around the character, and you're stepping into the shoes of that character who already has a personality, who already has relationships, and a role that they are in, rather than just create a character, go. Like, to me, that is not an RPG. And that's still encompasses way more than I would like, but that's the very base of what I would call an RPG.
Okay. When it comes to an RPG, it's such a weird definition to work with.
I know.
But the elements I think of obviously stats, like whether it's leveling up a creature or yourself or adding onto attributes. It's being able to take on multiple quests or side quests and everything else, whether you're working in a party or individually, etc. It's various different elements that make an RPG, but not every RPG has them. It's kind of the way I look at it. Like, you think of party systems in every RPG out there, but when you think about it, like,
Absolutely
I don't think
not.
The Witcher has a party system, and that's definitely an RPG. And
I
like,
wish I had played The Witcher more, but I probably would agree.
and you can play Fallout and other Scrolls without a party member.
No.
That's still considered an RPG. But then you also have weird things like MMOs. When you have MMORPGs, like
Right.
Final Fantasy XIV, where it's like, this is different than most other Final Fantasy games, but still an RPG.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's such a sloppy thing to talk about,
Yep.
because, like, it's hard to argue that an MMORPG isn't an RPG. I mean, if you just pretend like RPG, whatever it calls itself an RPG, is just a tacked on word, like, MMORPGs really kind of are. I mean...
They have the whole party system, they have quests, they have
See, I don't think it's...
all for the grind.
I don't think it's the party system or the quests that make an RPG an RPG.
Well, they're elements of one, though. Is what I look
Right,
at.
elements of.
Mm-hmm.
So, you want to go with your...
Well, do we want to discuss like what kind of games we think of as RPGs and see if we disagree on any of them?
I mean, we can go there.
Like, because I remember our last topic we talked about our favorite games, and you brought up you can't put Pokemon and Final Fantasy together. Is that because you don't think of Pokemon as an RPG, or
No,
what's...
my
Okay.
only thing with putting Pokemon and Final Fantasy together is that they are completely separate types of RPGs.
Well,
Just like
yeah.
trying to throw Final Fantasy in with Just Cause or any of the other... Like, you can't put Final Fantasy next to Elder Scrolls. They're different.
Yeah.
They're so different that they're not in the same category. Same with Pokemon and Final Fantasy.
They're both JRPGs, though.
Yeah, sure. But you can't mention them in the same breath because it doesn't make sense to
You're
talk
right, 'cause
about
Pokemon
them.
makes more money.
That too.
Makes a lot more money. But
Although Final Fantasy started it, so there.
Final Fantasy was the first RPG out there. It was just one of the big ones.
Well, no, I wasn't saying it was the first one. That was Dungeons and Dragons, and there was probably iterations beforehand. But no, it was before Pokemon.
Yeah, a lot of things
That's
before
all I'm
Pokemon.
saying. Yeah.
Would you like to thank Final Fantasy for Grand Theft Auto as well?
That would be a fun Final Fantasy.
That'd be a fun Final Fantasy.
Yeah, just be like...
It would be
Actually,
the-
that's kind of like 15, I guess.
It'd be the final Final Fantasy ever played because I'm not a huge... Hot topic brought up, I'm not a huge Rockstar Games guy. Like, I appreciate what their games do, but they just don't sit well with me. I don't know. There's archaic game design, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's archaic, and that's kind of what makes it fun.
Yeah, it can be. But I'm also like, I just spent $60 on this game where, like, I jump and I look dumb as shit. And
Like Halo! Oh!
but that's first person, so I don't have to see me look dumb as shit when I jump. I just see other people doing like, oh, you're dumb, and then shoot them. Call it good. That's beside the fact. So, what are games that we think of that people consider RPGs but we don't?
That we consider... Or,
Yeah, would you consider Nier an RPG?
Oh, man, you're just starting out with the big punches, aren't you?
Yeah. I'd say Nier and Yakuza are two big ones I always consider RPGs, and I can make cases for
Yeah,
easily.
but... Woof.
Yeah.
What isn't an RPG? How about that? Let's start there. What isn't an RPG?
I think games that just use RPG elements and don't use a bunch of elements.
But, is a game like Diablo an RPG?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
It's an action RPG.
But what isn't an RPG? Tell me a game
Call of
that
Duty.
isn't an RPG. I don't know. You could argue that it is.
I don't think so.
You get new gear, you get dropped behind enemy lines, you got goals and sub-goals.
Is that would that be the first thing that comes to mind though for it? Would it be a shooter or would it be an RPG first?
Right, but it does. So now, this is what I'm talking about.
okay.
We got to narrow this down. Is what comes to mind first? Because when you say Nier, that's not an RPG. That's more of a
Hack and slash?
hack and slash Devil May Cry, which also I wouldn't consider an RPG.
Well, no, but Nier has deeper systems than that, where you're customizing a bunch of options and everything, and you're leveling up and etc.
And I think
So that's why people consider it an action RPG.
I think that's where one of our big disagreements come from. Is as I go from feeling based, and you're talking about systems, but all RPG, like all of the ones that are undisputedly RPGs, have different systems, and some of them are rather simple. I mean, like, you can go on Steam and pull up RPG Maker games, and their systems are, like, some of them are so simple there are no systems. It's literally just a story. Like, no system, no leveling up, no battling. It's just a fucking story. And would you argue that that's not an RPG? Like, I know you haven't
It'd be
seen
a
what I'm...
case by case basis,
Right.
in my opinion.
But you're controlling a character walking around, and a lot of the ones I've seen are horror based. But you're walking around and interacting, like all you're doing is moving and interacting, and that's it. Like you're running from a monster or you're solving a puzzle. Like, is that an RPG?
See, the way I look at it, like in the case for like against a shooter being considered specifically an RPG, is the difference between Cyberpunk and Call of Duty. Cyberpunk has much deeper systems. It's got more going on for it, and there's a lot more in-depth stuff for RPG elements than Call of Duty does.
Yeah, sure.
Call of Duty's like, okay, you can make a loadout. You have your class there. That's about the closest thing you got to an RPG right there. Well,
What about Grand Theft Auto? Man,
I don't play enough Grand Theft Auto to really
you can't tell me you haven't played it. You like no.
enough to be like to know enough systems that would make me argue that it would be an RPG. Like what
Guns,
what part
safe houses. You can like. You slowly get better guns and equipment and buy mansions.
Yeah.
You improve your relations with the various gangs or make them worse. Or
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of systems going on. The radio changes to reflect what you may or may not have been doing in the world. Like, There's some stuff.
So are
going
you
on.
arguing for Grand Theft Auto being an RPG?
In your definition, yes. I would not call it an RPG. I'm using your definition to call it an RPG.
And what part of my definition was that? Just by leveling
systems.
up and buying systems?
Yeah,
Okay. So it has an element of RPG.
Complexity.
It needs multiple, though.
Okay, what other elements?
I've already mentioned it can include a party system. Doesn't need it.
Correct.
It needs a level up system, possibly. It needs a party system of a sort where, a stat system where, like, hey, in Pokemon, it's you level up your Pokemon.
Yeah.
The class system is you have a party there, and they can be of different elements. It has a story that has a set goal, whether it's linear or open scale, but then you could do multiple side quests on the side, which Grand Theft Auto has. For sure. And there's an end game, which you can say GTA Online is the end game for GTA if you want to.
So, what about 7 Days or Rust or any of those types of games? The open world survivor, because those are definitely
Survival RPGs?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
call those RPGs?
I'd say they would be.
Fuck that. I cannot go with that.
Why is that?
I just can't. It feels completely different than, like, say you jump into Star Ocean 2 or any of the Final Fantasies where there's this world built for you, or built already going on. People got their lives. You got, a history behind it. You got a history in front of it. I mean, you can even go back to Dungeons and Dragons, which is more or less an original RPG. Like I said, there's probably iterations beforehand, but like, there's history that's there, and you're making history. You're not doing that in Minecraft. You're not doing that in Rust. You're not doing that in those types of games. Like, they got RPG elements, but I refuse to tack on
I would say
RPG to them.
Ark and Rust have deeper RPG mechanics in them than Minecraft does. Minecraft is a much simpler. It's like, hey, you build this crap, whatever, and you go in depth as you want. But like, is there a lot of there's little stab boosts here, things here or there, but that's not like the main purpose of the game.
Yeah, it is. You go get some diamond shit, and then you go enchant your diamond shit, and like there's interactions between redstone and switches and pull. Like, there's all sorts of systems.
So you're making more of an argument for being an RPG by that definition.
By your definition. I don't agree with that definition.
Yeah.
I don't agree with Rust being an RPG.
You tell me what your definition then is, and then try bringing up games, and I can poke holes in your argument.
But you can't poke holes in my argument because
I can. I'm sure I can.
Because what I consider an RPG is like the ones that I think are RPGs are like unarguably RPGs. Like, it's the fringe cases where we have the issues, and it's the fringe cases where it blurs the line between what it definitely is an RPG to what definitely isn't an RPG, but it's like, when you're not setting the hard definition, you can get such a spectrum where you're like, well, maybe. Like, survival games aren't RPGs. They're just not.
There are survival RPGs out there, though. You're not looking at subcategories here. Action RPGs are a thing. They've been a thing for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
Just like isometric RPGs have been a thing for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about, is the elements of what makes those, like, unarguable RPGs is you're stepping into a character that has a history already.
Not always.
The vast majority of the time.
Because
Fallout, you had a history. You were in a vault. You have a name.
Do you mean just like Skyrim, where you're about to be executed?
Yeah, and that
And didn't you say against?
Skyrim is more of an RPG than a survival game.
That's true.
Like, that's...
But it's also, it's just called a Western action RPG. Like, what would you consider Skyrim then? Just called an RPG? Because that's... I wouldn't say it's just called an RPG. That's why there's subgenres to it. And Western RPG is just to say it's from the West side, not Japan.
But it's interesting because generally RPG is tacked on as the subgenre of... So it's weird because there's like RPGs and then there's action games that are RPGs. Like, you've got action games, RPGs, and then you've got this and this RPG and this RPG, and then you've got RPGs. Which, fuck.
See, I look at it as RPG is the umbrella over subgenres, because every RPG has their own distinct piece to it. Like, Final Fantasy 15 is not a turn-based RPG.
Nope.
It is an action RPG.
Yep. Yeah, no, action RPGs are undisputably RPGs, because Star Ocean 1, along with Tales of Eternia, a bunch of the Tales games
Yep.
are action RPGs.
Yep.
I haven't played very many of them, but
I'm playing Tales of Arise soon. That'll be exciting.
Of what?
Tales of Arise. That's the one that came out this last year. I'm excited to play that.
God, how many Tales games are there?
Enough.
There's a
but
lot.
not enough.
There's so many. I don't know. I feel like RPG requires a depth to the world. Some sort of depth.
Okay.
Like, so going with the depth and the world building, like Skyrim, yeah, and
Nier.
I suppose.
Yep.
God, see, I hate
And
it.
Yakuza.
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate you. I hate this blurred line.
It's easy to poke holes in the definitions when you get to it.
I know, including yours. You son of a bitch.
Because Nier has insane depth in the world. Insane. It's so
I
insane.
haven't
It
seen
is a
it yet.
spin-off of another series.
I haven't seen it yet, so I don't believe you.
I don't believe you.
Fuck. I guess I don't have a resolution. Unless you
Yeah.
got something more to say.
No, I think it's one of those things where it's like, it's kind of up to you whether you believe something is an RPG or not. But I think there are obvious cases like Pokemon and Final Fantasy. You can't argue that's not an RPG, otherwise you're dumb. Like,
I mean, I can be dumb.
you can be dumb.
I'm-
That is your option too. That is your RPG choice in your life.
I like how you put it. It is definitely baby's first RPG.
Yeah.
It is not very deep in mechanics. It's not very deep in world building. It's not very deep in character depth. It is shallow.
It does get really deep if you get in competitive scene though.
Yeah, but you can make anything competitive and make it deep. Like, you can take
Sure.
stupid, simple games and make them competitive.
But- But Pokemon has made that the meta now. Pokemon saw how people took it and they add that onto future games where they put the extra depth into it.
yeah, same with, like, Mario 1, where people got so in-depth with speedrunning that game.
Mario Maker.
Yeah,
That's
well,
why
I mean, they
made
made Mario Maker, and then Mario Maker 2 had weekly challenges or monthly challenges where you competed against the world. Like, yeah, that would be stupid not to be like, hey, this is how people are using my game. Let's make money on it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you got Dota and the competitive scene where I'm pretty sure when it was first created, that wasn't how it was supposed to go, and then it just blew into its own thing. But yeah.
I know Dragon Quest Builders is one of those weird ones that I haven't played it myself, but my understanding that's also a survival RPG. It's a survival game should be that way.
That's a weird one. That's a real
Welcome to
weird
video
one.
games.
Yeah.
Not every survival game is an RPG, but there are many that are.
I don't think I'd call it survival.
You don't think so?
No, I watched Dave. I guess it's just Dave.
Is Dave just Dave? Welcome to the Dave Show.
Yeah. Pretty sure. I'd have to look it up on my phone. I've been subscribed to him for fucking decade and a half. But he played Dragon Quest Builders, and its building and survival elements were so weak it really wasn't. It was more of an exploration.
See, this is where we're getting the. Maybe we have to have a survival slash.
Let's just have it all out right
Let's
now.
just have all right now. Like we'll do a 3-hour episode.
I mean,
Welcome to the extravaganza. No, I don't think so. But yeah,
I don't know.
there's so many subgenres out there to RPGs where like I'm kind of fine with it, honestly.
See, so this is my big issue with this whole thing, and I've said it to you before. It's, what is the point of a definition if it doesn't convey something to the person who you're speaking to? Like, if you call XYZ an RPG, it needs to describe what you're supposed to get a picture of. If I say
that's why you say
JRPG,
action RPG.
yeah, but action RPG is also still so fucking broad. You really don't know what it means.
Not so well. I mean, you could say that
Absolutely.
with any genre, then. Though I could say sports game. You're like, what kind of sports game?
Yeah, but that's
You can say shooter. What kind of shooter? You're talking about third person, tactical, first person.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's part of the umbrella. That's how it is for all games.
RPG used to mean JRPG, and then it just got big. I mean, you used to be able to call a beat 'em up, but now what does that mean?
I think it still means the same thing.
Yeah,
It's like your Castle Crashers.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like your, even to a point, you could say, Yakuza is also a beat 'em up.
I mean, kinda.
Streets of Rage, which is still a thing. So beat 'em ups are still around.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a confusing one at all.
Yeah, but that's my
Charlie
point.
Murder.
You get what I'm saying. I say beat 'em up, you get it. If I say
Yeah.
shmup, shoot 'em up, you get it.
That's also a subcategory, though.
Is it? Because
Beat 'em up? I'd say that's a subcategory of action.
So,
Because I wouldn't say every beat 'em up is a side scroller, so I wouldn't say it's
give me a term that describes Nier.
Nier?
In just one or two words. Just give me the mental picture of Nier.
action RPG. There you go.
That's too broad. That doesn't tell me
why
what
is
Nier
that too broad? What other action RPGs? What do you think of when you think of an action RPG?
I think of Star Ocean 1. I think of the Tales games. I think of...
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Right, but that's nowhere near what Nier is. Like, nowhere near.
Nowhere near as near.
Yeah, like, that's what I'm saying. You can say beat 'em up or shmup. You get a pretty damn clear
So
idea.
if you want to say with only 2 words, that's your problem, though. If you're
So
okay
give me
with doing 4,
give me
action,
4 words.
hack and slash, action RPG. There you go. There you go.
Does that
That's
really?
simple.
Does that really encompass Nier?
Nier is also a weird case too.
That's why I picked it.
Yeah,
Because it's
but
a weird
the
case.
main gameplay style is yes, the hack and slash. It has bullet hell elements,
Yeah,
but that's not
so
that's
minor.
not the main.
Yeah, no, that's
Well, it gets a bigger deal later on. But
I figured,
but
it's okay. Try what's Yakuza then?
Yakuza would be another action RPG.
Give me more that makes me think
A,
like
a brawler a brawler action RPG. Brawler or beat 'em up, whichever way you want to put it. I also think RPGs usually go over the top with their stories usually too, because like you mentioned the depth.
Yeah.
Yakuza definitely has depth,
absolutely.
but I would agree with that. Like story is a big key part of it.
That's part of
Even
what
building
the
off lore,
R,
even.
R that's the R in role
Yeah.
playing is that you're just like otherwise everything is an RPG.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything is an RPG. Like but you're playing I love games, just an aside. I love games that make you play as somebody you wouldn't be normally. Like you don't get the choice, or your choices are to play as the character or play the antithesis of the character, and then when you play as the antithesis of the character, you're punished. Like, you have to come to know and embody the character and just go along for the ride. I fucking love those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Like, it's a new perspective. Like, that's the role-playing part of an RPG. And...
That's also Devil May Cry. If you don't play as Dante, you die.
I guess I don't know. I'm still unsatisfied.
You're unsatisfied?
I don't know if I'll ever be satisfied.
What is the game that people mention as an RPG that you don't agree with?
So many.
Well, pick one. We can talk about it.
I have to go through my library and figure it out.
What is this? What is a cyberpunk?
What is a cyberpunk? Yeah.
That was kind of one of the big things I think started this discussion was like we're looking at like what is considered a cyberpunk game.
Yeah, and steampunk
And steampunk, yep.
and
And cloudpunk.
Cloudpunk. No, Cloud is a punk.
Aquafina punk. That's BioShock.
Yeah, no, that is what started. Because you called it a simulator. It's not a simulator.
It's a sim, yeah.
No.
It is.
No.
Yep.
No. I refuse. Otherwise,
You
all
refuse?
games are sims. Just like you can call all games RPGs, you can call all games simulations. I fucking refuse that. It's not...
You don't consider Dishonored a sim either?
No!
Huh. Interesting.
I mean, in the stupidest way, you could call Assassin's Creed a sim, but I don't...
I mean, it's straight up as a simulation based off
Yeah,
the story.
exactly. It's stupid, though. It's stupid to call
Is it?
Assassin's Creed a simulation.
Is it?
Simulation is simulating... no.
That's a great genre. It's simulating... Oh! Because, see, I think the problem is people specifically think of racing games when they think of Sims.
Fuck that, no. I just think of, like, Surgeon Simulator, or Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. You're fucking screwing around with the bomb. Your airplane simulator, you got your racing. Simulators are more to...
You're putting yourself in the shoes of John Shenmue. Anybody could be John Shenmue.
No.
And John Shenmue
See,
is you.
that's what I'm saying. Everything's a simulator, then. Everything is. No, simulation games are more to emulate an experience that you would have. Oh, I hate you.
This will have to be another conversation topic down the line, I think.
No, we're doing it right.
Because I think you'd be surprised, like, it's like across the board people say BioShock and like arcane games are all considered Sims.
They can, and they're welcome to their opinion, but they're wrong.
This is the guy who can't even finish his own definition.
Yeah.
So give me an example of RPG. Give me an example of RPG that, or a game people call it RPG that you disagree with.
I can't at the moment. You put me on the spot. I'm not good.
I mean, we talked about this for how many days? You didn't do your research? I see how it is.
Yeah.
Welcome to Trash City Gamers for Professionals.
Trash talk!
Just say it really just start crying when you mention trash talk.
Oh, fuck. Is this a simulation? Are we in a simulation?
Is this The Matrix?
Ugh.
Is The Matrix an RPG?
I've told everyone not to watch The Matrix.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were the one that was the highest on it. You're like, I need to see this.
Yep.
And then you're like, no one needs to see this.
Exactly.
Exclusive.
It was just like, wait until it comes out on DVD.
Video on demand.
Don't go see it. Alex was
Alright.
just like, I was gonna go see The Matrix. I'm like, you're gonna be disappointed. So then we got to chit chatting, and finally, like, after I kind of was convincing him, just be like, don't go see that in theaters, really don't. And then he was asked me some questions about the plot, and I'm like, okay, well, here's the plot, and I'm telling you that it's as garbage as I tell you it is.
See, I thought Matrix fans were just used to being disappointed.
I really liked 1 and 2 and 3, but yeah.
That's not the consensus online. Consensus is like everything sucked except for the first one. Some people are like the second one's okay.
Meh.
But, yeah.
I mean, it was.
But also,
But the
I'm
fourth
not
one
part
is-
of the Matrix Echo Chamber either, so I mean... Because I had like 3 personally, but...
Yeah, I mean, 3 was good. 3 had action, adventure, blah, 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 blah,
RPG.
Fuck you.
Was it a Japanese role-playing game? With
Yes.
Keanu Reeves?
Absolutely.
Just screams Nani to the sun.
Okay, well, we may have to revisit this in a future, but I think I think we plumbed the depths.
You think so?
I don't know.
So-
What do you want to say?
Well, I do want to bring up like a different series. Like, would you consider it an RPG? Like, do you consider Elder Scrolls an RPG? Because that was something you brought up earlier, and I'm like, I would consider Elder Scrolls very much an RPG series.
Yeah, by my own definitions, but man, when I think of RPG, I just think of JRPGs. Really.
So you're jaded.
Uh,
You're jaded RPG. That's what J stands for.
I grew up on JRPGs.
Yeah.
Legend of Legaia, the Final Fantasy series, Dragon Warrior, Breath of Fire, that one, Super Mario RPG, the Tales games, Dark Cloud. I mean, JRPGs were quintessentially RPGs. And then everyone was just like, RPG genres are super popular. And then they started tacking it into everything else. Because during my childhood, RPGs really just meant JRPGs or AR.
Baldur's Gate.
Huh?
Well, Baldur's Gate, though. And Diablo. They've
Man.
been around for forever.
Yeah, but those were the outside cases. Like, those weren't... That
They're only
was,
outside because you won't let them inside.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, I don't want to touch those games. Those are nasty. I want to play my Final Fantasy VII. I want my big sword blonde-haired man.
Yeah.
Something I'd find on a Hot Topic shirt.
I would, yep.
I mean, that's the definition. If it's on a Hot Topic shirt, it's an RPG.
Exactly.
Welcome, Disturbed. You're an RPG.
Whoa, Evan.
Oh. Huh. What about... So you're basing most of your stuff around the JRPG sort of
Yes,
route.
that's what RPG feels like it should be to me. And then, when I hit my young adult years, everyone was just like, games caught on and got bigger, and RPGs were popular, and people are just like, everything's an RPG, and then I got super jaded. Because it's not everything's a fucking RPG. It's not. Like, they started calling everything an RPG. Everything! And when I get my RPG, I go to get my RPG fix and buy a new RPG, in quotes, like, I'd be like, this is not an RPG.
Would you consider the Ascent an RPG?
No, not really. Like, not if we're going back to my old school idea of what an RPG is. not like going back to what more of a pure RPG is. Like, no, not really. It's a twin stick shooter, and it's got a world. Cool, but it's a twin stick shooter
with skill trees and everything too.
Yeah, the skill trees does not make an RPG to me.
I think it's an important element, though.
Absolutely not.
I think so.
No.
Yeah.
You can make an RPG that's just you're walking through the world talking to people. Like, you don't have to level up. That was just so that a player had a sense of progression.
Yeah.
Like, that's what the leveling up and those sorts of systems are for, is for a sense of progression to keep you going along the story and exploring the world you're in. Like, that was an element designed just to keep a person playing. It wasn't supposed to be tacked into RPGs, I feel, anyway.
But where is it mostly seen, though? I think it's usually seen mostly in RPGs. Is skill trees and such. More often.
I mean, skill trees was a new thing, too. Like, skill trees wasn't much of a thing. Like, you had... Final Fantasy V was the most revolutionary as far as skill trees, and then you had Final Fantasy VI, but that sort of stuff was brand new, and then you went to 7 and 8 and 9, and then it got convoluted and big, and I started falling away from the whole RPG scene because it's just like, this is messy.
Yeah.
Give me my fucking stories.
But skill trees are also kind of an offshoot of a class system, too.
Yeah.
Depending on what game it's in.
Yeah. I don't think that's what makes an RPG.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be playing Dungeons & Dragons, and, like, Joe turned me on to a group that plays Dungeons & Dragons, like, hey, you're in the kitchen of a restaurant right before bars close. What do you do? And that's how they play their RPG. It has very little to do with stats. It's just storytelling. Storytelling is the most vital and important part of an RPG.
But in D&D, stats are a huge thing.
They can be, but that's to drive.
I would say
it's to drive the story.
Yeah.
Stats drive the story. They add the random chance and whatnot, but you don't need them. You really don't need them.
I think they're an important part of a lot of RPGs, though.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy included.
Adds the
Pokemon included.
Adds the random element. Adds the excitement. It's a little bit of gambling into it. A little bit of gambling. A little.
Are you saying RPGs are loot boxes?
Yes. Well, I mean, think about it. The most boring RPGs that I've ever played are ones that you do 1 point of damage reliably. There's no chance to miss, no chance to hit, the enemy's left at such small amount, you're like, oh, just a little bit more. It's just, yep, I know exactly how this battle's gonna go. Like, that's boring as shit. Like, that's why they do the stats, is to change it up so that your brain can't do all the calculations, so that you get that feeling of excitement, like, am I gonna clutch it out? Like, that's why stats exist. Stats do not RPG make.
How about Borderlands? You consider that an RPG?
Is Borderlands an RPG? No. It's a looter shooter.
Okay.
Absolutely looter shooter.
Interesting. I find your comments interesting.
You're just like, fuck you.
Like, I don't know if I'd go as far as saying Borderlands is an RPG, but loot is also a big part of some RPGs as well.
Again, it's another element that drives people forward into a story.
But I would say the first thing I think of for Borderlands is, like, if I'm doing the big term, it'd be first-person shooter.
Mine would be looter shooter.
Yep, looter. But some people don't know what looter shooter means. Some be like, what the hell does that mean?
Who doesn't fucking know what a looter shooter is?
I think you forget, like, 90% of gamers are casuals.
But...
that's why, like, these umbrella terms like RPG are important, because, like, a lot of people are like, oh, I kind of get what an RPG is. If they want more and more, it's like, it's an action RPG. What does that mean? Whoever seen Devil May Cry, yeah, so that's an action game. Now put RPG elements onto it. Oh, okay, that makes sense. But, like, I think with the internet being so big, we're so used to being surrounded by people that understand our hobby more so than we give credit to.
Then, okay.
Yeah. So I think you'd see a lot of people, like, when you say looter shooter, like, what the fuck does that mean? And I think it's understandable. So, like, a lot of people would probably be like, what does that even mean?
And that's fine, and they can look it up.
Yeah.
Because we're surrounded by the internet, and you can find out pretty much anything.
Just like the definition of an RPG. Or what people categorize as RPGs.
You can't argue that terms and definitions get muddied.
They do. Like, what does an open world mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, this is technically an open hub. What makes that different from the open world, though? because it's smaller. Like, some open world games aren't huge, though.
See, that's the thing that's a category in general I don't care about, and so I'm passionate about RPGs. I'm not passionate about open worlds, and I'm sure that there is a lot of conflict. Words.
Yep.
There's a lot of dilution and misuse of the term open world.
Yeah.
Like, I generally don't care about open world games.
See, I just like games. I play whatever.
Yeah, I know.
Makes me happy.
I have specific tastes because I don't.
Because you're jaded.
Yeah.
Jaded RPG.
I am definitely jaded. I'm jaded. Jaded to shit.
Was your favorite game Jade Empire?
Did I play that? I think I played a little bit of Jade Cocoon.
Interesting.
That's an RPG.
Is it?
Yeah, it's actually kind of Pokemon-like, too. Before Pokemon. It predates Pokemon. Or does it? About the same time. It was about the same time as Pokemon and Monster Rancher and Digimon. Like, it kind of hit that time period where you collected and battled.
Where everybody had the same idea around the same time.
Yeah. They're like, oh, this works.
Or they saw somebody was working on something similar, like, oh, that's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
Write that down.
But I never got really into it.
Yeah, I think we will forever, for the rest of the time, argue what an RPG is.
Absolutely.
Because this podcast did not come to a definitive decision of what it is. So forever and always, people come back to this, be like, see, it's still undecided. We can't decide what RPG is. When Starfield by Bethesda comes out next year, people are gonna be like, "Is this an RPG?" We gotta find out what the boys think, and we won't.
Every
really agree.
every time we start a new game, we're gonna have to start and finish by being like, "Is this an RPG? Was that an RPG?
Is No Man's Sky an RPG?"
I don't know. I never played it. I don't care about that game. That was all the hype, and I'm super hipster, so I'm like anti-hype. I don't care.
Oh.
But Alex bought it, and I bought it for that PC because that PC is super tanky, awesome. Like that PC can run anything. Still modern. It's still awesome. And he bought it, and it wouldn't run on that because it's a
He bought it at launch.
Yeah.
He fell over the PlayStation marketing machine. I feel bad for him.
But it wouldn't run on that machine because it was not the most recent generation of chip. And it pissed me off. I'm like, are you fucking kidding? I can play everything on Ultra, and it won't run No Man's Sky because it's not an Intel machine.
Because it's not well optimized.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I don't play PC gaming too much, is like half the time like it sounds like a headache just to get my game to play the way I want it to.
Not generally.
Yeah.
Not generally.
But then you have the big moments like Batman Arkham Knight where I'm like, but I can just play this on my Xbox now and not have a problem.
Yeah.
Instead of having to wait
But
2
you can't
years for them
mod
to
stuff on
relaunch
your
it.
Xbox. So there.
Some games you can.
Most games you can't.
Most games you can't, though. But I don't mind that. I don't really mod things. Usually I finish a game and then I'm done. Yeah. See, listen here, Mr. PC Gamer. Elitist. I'm going to put No Man's Sky in 8K 120 FPS and mod everything. But I haven't bought the game.
Yep.
And I never will.
Yeah. I mean, No Man's Sky was a great concept.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic concept. And if Mr. C's listening to this, a funny story.
Yeah.
He was like, I can't get it to launch. Like, and he took a screenshot of the screen, and he's just like, can't get it to launch. And I did a little bit of sleuthing on the internet, and it says initialize F or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I think I put it in our channel too. And I just like press F. And then he did, and he's like, I feel stupid. Like, it was just, all you had to do was press F. Anyway.
That's a whole another topic we could do. Is just games that I appreciate what they do, but I just can't get into them. No Man's Sky is one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. If it came out back in the heyday of open world survival, exploration, blah, blah, I'd have been super stoked to play it. But by then, I'd already burnt out on them. Like, Minecraft burned me out, and then I tried playing 7 Days or something like that, and there were just so many that came out, and it was just like, I don't care anymore.
See, survival games just aren't my jam in the first place. Unless I finally find the one that makes me to be a fan. Because it might be a case like Hades where, like, it leads me into roguelikes now. Maybe. Like, Dead Cells and Hades I really like, so maybe you'll get me more into other ones.
Yeah, roguelikes are generally pretty good.
Yeah. And now you got a bunch of... This is the year of the time loop, where, like, every other game's a time loop game now. Where it's like, maybe this will be a subgenre. And they also kind of add on to the roguelike element, too, depending on what you're playing. Like, Deathloop, Loop Hero, 12 Minutes, and what was the other one? Oh, there was another one that came out this year where it was another time loop game. Like, where the hell did this all come from?
I mean, it's been a concept that's been explored for a while now.
Yeah. It's
and
just
it's
suddenly
a cool
was big
concept.
this year.
Yeah, it's always that way.
It was kind of like the months... Like, obviously, Cyberpunk's been around for a while. But the years leading up to Cyberpunk 2077, also we got a bunch of Cyberpunk-like games. Where I'm like, where did this come from all of a sudden? But, they're good stuff. It's a good kind of world setting, but it is what it is. But yeah, so I think that wraps up the topic. We've ranted about other things.
All the things.
Let us know what you think makes an RPG to you. What's a game that you think of that people say is an RPG and you disagree with? Or what's a game that you think is an RPG that other people disagree with?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start a conversation. I'd either come into the Discord and talk about it, leave in the comments. We can have heated and civil discourse.
I'll tell you what, Angry Toast, they leave it in the comments on YouTube. They'll get mentioned on the next video, like we got one of our viewers right now.
Yeah.
So last episode, I was going to say last week on Dragon Ball Z. That's not correct.
Last time on Trash Talks.
Last time on Trash Talk. We had asked you, the viewers, what are some of your favorite games of all time? Or what are games you really enjoy? And our buddy Tyler commented and said, if you love turn-based RPGs, he recommends Fire Emblem Three Houses on the Switch. It was amazing. 100+ hours in that one. Basically 4 overlapping storylines depending on your actions/leader selection. So thank you, Tyler, for writing in.
Thanks, Tyler.
I know a lot of people love Fire Emblem, except the Smash Bros. Community.
What RPG do you think Trunnell likes?
Political.
Yes.
Political RPG. Which I mean, a lot of things. Is Cyberpunk a political RPG?
Oh, no.
Both on a meta level and in-game level it is.
Oh, man.
What is a properly non-broken game at launch? It wasn't Cyberpunk.
Oh, wait, no. The most political RPG broken at launch, No Man's Sky.
Batman Arkham Knight.
Nope, No Man's Sky wins it by far.
I don't know. Cyberpunk got removed from the PlayStation Store for months.
Did it?
Yep.
Yeah, but didn't No Man's Sky as well? Like,
No.
No Man's Sky was just bombed.
I blame both Hello Games for them not... Sean Murray, the guy who leads the studio, seems like an excited guy. Came off as someone that was super excited for his game, but didn't really tell us how much he was showing wouldn't be ready for launch. And so I'm going to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but he was lying a bit.
Yeah,
but then PlayStation was like, hey, we have a marketing deal for this game. Let's market it like a AAA game. And they were like, we're going to give you like a 3-minute, 4-minute stage presence at E3. It's one of those things I'm like, dang, you know this is an indie game, right? Like, people, don't overhype yourselves on this. And people did it anyway.
Yeah.
And so I feel bad on both sides. There's like, yeah, you should have been more clear on what this game's going to be. But also, shame on you people for being like, this indie game is going to be bigger than anything else we've ever seen. And I'm like, problems on both sides. The hype machine is a little insane sometimes. And I'm part of the problem too. I get hyped over some games.
Absolutely.
But usually it's like when I have a good idea what that game's going to be.
Anyway.
But yeah.
Thanks for joining
Political
us on
RPG.
Trash Talks.
Trash Talks.
Trash Talks.
Yeah, so... Yeah, we'll see you on the next episode. I don't think we fully decided yet. We might be talking about, we might do some awards, maybe. We'll see.
M'awards.
Some awards. My wards?
M'awards.
Wart, like an elite. Alright, see you guys next time. Bye-bye!